a steal again. State, tough pass, it got there, and good night. Wow.
Ager, but this is a beautiful pass and great catch. And we talked about how Brown can go up with anybody in the country. Former Mr. Illinois, Mr. Basketball.
2006 NBA Draft, the Dallas Mavericks select Maurice Ager of Michigan State University. Maurice.
Good decision maker, good basketball IQ. Good solid choices the last two.
Hey friends, welcome back to another exciting episode of 乔遇師傅 2.0. Today, I have the privilege of sitting down with the one and only Maurice Ager, a former NBA player, a music producer, and a dedicated basketball coach. He will take us behind the scene of his illustrious basketball career, share his passion for music, and provide an insider's view of the global basketball landscape, including his coaching role in Malaysia. Without further ado, let's dive into it. First of all, thank you very much for coming to the show. Appreciate it.
No problem, man. I appreciate you having me, brother.
All right. So my first question is, you play in the NCAA Final Four. You play in the good school, Michigan State. Then you play for Coach Tom Izzo. And then you play in the NBA. You're a music producer. And now you're coaching in Malaysia. Can you share some insights into your early basketball journey and what initially sparked your passion for the sport?
I think initially, man, just the joy of playing with friends and stuff like that, man. Playing outside, being able to, play around the neighborhood, different things that kept us out of trouble. It wasn't really till later on in life where I kind of like discovered basketball as something that I can go on and, do professionally, And at the time, this was a way to get our family into a better situation. So, yeah, living in Detroit, my brother-in-law, he really introduced me to professional basketball, college basketball, and he really started introducing, the what I would say the process in which in which it takes to get there, from AAU, travel basketball, playing in high school, playing in college, playing in the NBA. So he the one that really introduced me to like NBA basketball. I started watching Detroit Pistons at a very young age. I was able to like kind of just see how, just to see like, pretty much the prestige of it. I feel like the prestige of it really sparked the interest when I was younger, and when I found out, a lot of guys who made it to the NBA were guys who come from the same type of situations as me, just living in, the inner cities, urban environments, and they use the sport to get their families in better situations. So once I, started to discover that, along with the love for the game, it just put something in me.
Is it the bad boy?
Yeah.
The bad boy era.
88, 89, yeah. I was a Pistons fan, since I can remember,
Okay. You studied in Michigan State, and you were in the Final Four in 2005 NCAA Final Four. So it was a significant moment in your collegiate career, I'm pretty sure. So could you walk us through that experience and the impact it had on you as a player?
Man, it was huge because we played Duke, and we played Duke earlier in that year. They beat us pretty bad. We played Duke at home at Cameron Arena. And so we got a chance to play them again in the Sweet 16. So this was pretty much like a revenge game for us. So there was a lot of hype around it. I feel like everybody counted us out at the time. We was the underdogs. Duke University, you already know. Their record is pretty amazing to this day. But we went in as underdogs. So we had to go out there and prove ourselves because we got tired of the media talking crazy about us. So it got to a point in time where we just felt like, this is our opportunity to beat Duke. So beating Duke was probably one of the most monumental times, at Michigan State, and in the tournament. But what made it even more special during the tournament, we beat Kentucky in the same weekend. So we beat a Duke on Friday, then we got to turn around, prepare for Kentucky on Saturday, and play Kentucky on Sunday. It hasn't been done before. I think we're the first team, we're actually the first team at NCAA to ever beat Duke and Kentucky in the same weekend. So we made history. And then making it to the Final Four was immaculate, playing against some of the best players in college basketball at the time. And they had maybe 6 or 7 NBA draft picks, right? So they ended up being the first round. Yeah, we lost to let's just say we lost to the team that won the championship.
How was it playing for Coach Tom Izzo? Because from the outside, we watched on TV and stuff like that. He's pretty strict.
Yeah, he don't take no mess, man. You know, Tom Izzo was a tough guy. He holds everybody accountable. He's one of those coaches who's gonna, do the best he can to keep his word in terms of being able to help guys graduate. You know, that was his big thing. You know, he wanted guys to come to Michigan State, get an education, graduate, and obviously make it to the NBA. It looks good for everybody, but ultimately, man, he was just a very strict coach. But I got along with him, man. You know, we had a pretty good relationship at Michigan State at that time, and it was a privilege to play for him because he's one of the greatest coaches in history. But yeah, he was tough, man. You know, he was a really, really tough guy, man. He didn't let us get away with nothing, man. So it was it prepared us. It prepared us for life. It prepared us to come out to this world, have thick skin, and and make it through ups and downs because we were faced with so many challenges on and off the court. And Coach Izzo, he did a really good job of helping us maintain our basketball world and our schooling and things outside of that. So it was good, man. Tom Izzo, man, shout out to him, man.
It must be tough for you, for a student athlete. You have to juggle between basketball and study. Get certain grade to continue to play basketball, right?
Yeah, it was tough because we spend majority of our time playing basketball. So, by the time it was trying to go to school or go to, tutoring sessions or stuff like that, man, it was tough because we was tired. You know what I'm saying? So it was always a challenge being a student athlete, but it was still fun nonetheless, man. We figured out ways to get it done. We had some of the best facilities, in order to help us, focus on our academics right along with sports. So it was definitely something very difficult to manage, especially in the beginning. But eventually, after 4 years, you kind of get used to everything, managing your time and, get with some people that support you. I would say that was huge, to meet other people that can actually help me with certain things when it came to school, and when I couldn't do certain things, they was able to kind of hold me down,
Transitioning to the NBA, and what were your thoughts and emotions on draft night when you were selected by the Dallas Mavericks with the 28th overall pick in the 2006 NBA draft?
Yeah, it kind of just go back full circle, from the beginning. When I was younger, I got introduced to, this thing called the NBA and NCAA, and for years it drew a prestige on my heart and my mind. So once I got a chance to actually get there, after all of the years, all of the hard work, childhood dream, then you get a chance to go up there and hear your name called. So it was a very I would say anxious night. It was very anxious because I just didn't know when I was gonna get drafted, but I knew I just didn't know when or where. So it was a very stressful day, but ultimately, all of those emotions from 15 to 20 years of dreaming for something for it to finally come true is speechless. I'm saying? There's no words for it.
Before the draft night, were you aware that you will get selected?
I didn't know when or where. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's something you just have to. That's what I'm saying. It's a very anxious night because you don't know. So you sitting there just waiting, and you wait. So I just figure, I'm here to continue to, I would say, establish patience. So I had to stay patient. Stay patient. Stay patient. You know what I'm saying? That's what it was. It's all about patience. In that type of situation, ain't nothing you can do but wait.
But when you put on that hat, the Dallas Mavericks hat, and shake hand with Commissioner David Stern, well, that must be like the feeling, let's say, over the moon, right?
Yeah, that was the one. That was the one. I watched the NBA draft for years, watching other guys. Like I said, I keep saying it's the prestige of it. You know what I'm saying? You get a chance to see something on TV as a kid, and then put yourself in that situation, man. Like, words can't explain how amazing that is, And that was one of the most monumental moments, for sure.
Yeah, because over the years, when I watched those NBA draft night, right? When I watched those, like, get drafted, and then they went on the stage, shake hand, and then they did the interview. Quite emotional.
Yeah, it's really emotional. Family's there. Your family watch you work your ass off for years. So for them to see it happen, it's emotional for them, for myself. All of the sacrifices they made for me, all the days I put in the gym, all the days just sitting back, imagining myself being in that situation, for it to actually come to life, it's super emotional,
Is your family with you on the draft night?
Yeah. Mom, sister, brother-in-law, coaches, cousins, friends. It was excited just as much as me to a certain degree, we went out, had a good time, party that night.
And then you played for several NBA teams during your career, right? And then, can you highlight any standout moment or challenges you faced while you were in the league?
I think the biggest challenge is just, you know, adjusting from college to back to NBA. You know what I'm saying? The style of play is different. It's a lot faster than people think. Players from front to back are extremely talented. Lifestyle is different. You know, guys are grown men, you know, so people go home to their families versus us being in college where we probably, you know, would spend more time with each other after practice and stuff like that. You know, in the NBA, I got a 40-year-old on the team, a 44-year-old. So it's just a different dynamic, you know, so it's more so kind of, you know, you kind of on your own a bit. So just making those adjustments was always tough, you know, because coming from a family environment like Michigan State, you know, where we did everything together, to moving on to, you know, another situation where it's just kind of like, all right, man, see you when I see you, you know. So, you know, the camaraderie wasn't the same as it was in college.
I mean, you play with Dirk Nowitzki. How was that experience? Play with one of the best players in that era.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's historic. It's historic. It's a historic moment, man, playing with a Hall of Famer. And, you know, sitting on the plane with him every day, cracking jokes. You know, he was a big jokester. You know, he would make fun of everything. You know, he was a really hard worker, like I would say one of the top 3 hardest working superstars I've ever seen, considering that he's a Hall of Famer. He was older at that time. And the hours that he put into the gym can't be matched. You know what I'm saying? I got a chance to see him before practice, after practice, before games, after games and getting shots up. So those are some of the things I want to be able to bring to life here in Malaysia. You know, to some of the players on how hard you want to work, how hard you have to work in order to be great. We know that everybody's not going to make it to the NBA, but treat this game good. You know, this game can treat you good for the rest of your life. So it's like you put that time and that effort in, like some of these greats do. You might not necessarily make it to the highest level, but the game of basketball will take care of you one way or another. So I'm just trying to get these guys to realize how important it is to put in extra work and how important it is, you know, not only for your basketball, but to actually help develop your mental and become disciplined, focused about something that you care about. If you desire to be the best, put in that extra work. And that's what I got from Dirk.
Is that the best lesson you have learned in your NBA career?
No, I say the best lesson is really just, you know, just learning to stay professional. You know, taking care of yourself on and off the court. You know, taking care of your business. You know, making sure that you're not allowing, you know, too many outside distractions, you know, come in between what you're supposed to be doing on the basketball court. You know, so I think that's very important. You know, I feel like a lot of with social media stuff like that, it makes it a lot difficult for these kids to stay focused. So, you know, I would definitely, you know, recommend that they just do whatever they got to do in order to, you know, keep themselves, you know, focused on the game, you know, and everything that matters to them in life. You know what I'm saying? Not just basketball, but whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah, true. I totally agree with you about the professionalism of the players. Yeah. You have to stay focused and stay professional. After retiring from professional basketball, you pursue a music career that's special to me. I mean, basketball and then music, and were even considered for a Grammy Award. What inspired you to explore music, and how did your basketball background influence your music career?
I believe they went hand in hand. You know, just coming from Detroit, you know, that's a musical town. And my mom was into music. My dad was into music. Actually, music was something that I did before basketball, like way before. You know, basketball was the athletic side of things. But artistically, I was always into, you know, the arts. You know what I'm saying? Drawing, writing music, recording music, performing music. You know, I've been doing that for as long as I can remember. So, you know, it was always there. You know, it's not something that I put to the side because of basketball. It was something that I used basketball for to actually expand on what I was doing creatively. And, you know, they still go hand in hand to this day. You know, I feel like they both somehow always seem to mesh well with each other. You know, so it's, you know, sports, music, they just go hand in hand. Everybody know that, you know what I'm saying? I think we're living in a time now where it's more acceptable for people to be like, you know, multi-talented. About, you know, 10 years ago, you know, people still kind of frowned upon people who wanted to do extracurricular stuff outside of sports. So it was like, you know, to see guys like into fashion, into, you know, cooking and all of these things, it's like, it's pretty cool to see. And I would like to feel like I was a trailblazer when it comes to, like, you know, pursuing things right along with your basketball career. Because a lot of these guys I mentored, you know, some of these NBA guys were doing music and doing their thing. You know, I was the one, you know, encouraging, like Dame Dollar. You know, he used to send me stuff back in the day. You know, so now he's doing well musically. So as just an example of somebody who I inspired, you know, to still follow your dreams while you're playing ball. You know what I'm saying? Dame Dollar is a perfect example.
So you're still producing music?
Yeah. As long as I'm living, man, music is always going to be a part of my life, for sure.
Wow. Pretty cool. I wish I could. I mean, one day, I want to listen to your song.
Yeah. Go on Spotify. Type in Moe Ager, man. It's a lot of songs on there.
Oh, okay. Cool.
SoundCloud. You can go to Moe Ager. Bandcamp, Moe Ager. There's everywhere.
I'm going to check it out.
Yeah.
In 2014, you created the Moe Ager Hope School to develop young basketball players around the world. So can you tell us about the motivation behind starting this program and share any impactful experiences from your work in various countries, including Malaysia?
Yeah. I just feel like it was just always a passion to give back, you know. Always love young people, the youth. Yeah, at that time, I just felt like it was necessary, you know. One of my friends, Stephanie, she gave me the idea. You know, she's like, why don't you start your own? You know, and then 2013, actually, you know, I came up with the name, you know, found my crew. You know, and at that time, we were doing camps and clinics and stuff in LA, Palm Beach, Laguna, you know, all throughout, you know, Southern California. And taking it to, you know, Toronto, to the Bahamas, to, you know, Spain, China, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Thailand. So, and you know, now we're working on some stuff here, you know, working with the guys over at Port Dixon, younger group, you know, 17 and under. So it really sparked the heart of just passionate about giving back to the youth, just passing down the knowledge, you know.
Currently, you're serving as an assistant coach for NS Matrix in Malaysia, and also the head coach of the currently the development league. So what are your coaching aspirations, and how do you see yourself contributing to the growth of basketball talent in Malaysia?
You know, I feel like it's a gradual process, but I feel like, you know, just mentality, professionalism, skill work, the approach to the game is everything, you know, in order to, you know, be the things that are the key elements and components that make it great. Fundamentals. I feel like fundamentals can never be, you know, even in the NBA, man, we work on fundamentals every single day. So I feel like fundamentals is lacking. Even for some of our, you know, older guys, it's like fundamentals need to be a lot more emphasized out here. So I believe we need to get back to that. And eventually just seeing how I can actually bring, you know, some of, you know, my NBA connects over here and see how we can make some connections, some camps, some clinics, bring some pro players over here, you know, host some weekends, host some week tournaments. The sky's the limit. And I love it because, you know, basketball is growing here. And I feel like it's at a really good state of, you know, where it needs to get over the hump. And I believe that, you know, I can help with that in many ways.
That's pretty dope, right? I mean, if you can bring if you can bring in some of the NBA players or coaches to do camp here, wow, that would be perfect.
Yeah, some guest appearances, you know, all of that stuff, man. Just, you know, raise more basketball awareness here, you know. So I'm gonna use my expertise, my relationships, the things that I have that I've built over these years for my foundation to add value here, you know. So it's many outlets.
You have worked in various international locations including Europe, Asia, South America, Africa, and Southeast Asia. Because before you came to Malaysia, you were in Vietnam, right?
Yeah,
so What differences have you observed in basketball development in these regions, and what lesson have you learned from your international experiences?
I think culturally, you know, culturally is so much different over at Asia when it comes to basketball. You know, education is number one, you know, and not to say that education isn't important in America, but here it's kind of like, okay, even pro players, they still gotta go to school, miss practice, stuff like that. I feel like that was like one of the biggest adjustments for me, you know, because we, you know, in America, we're not missing practice for nothing. You know what I'm saying? It had to be like almost an immersion. And here it's just kind of like, you know, basketball is like a it's on the up and up. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to say that basketball should be more important than education, but it was definitely kind of like an adjustment for me you know, just to see guys miss so much practice because of school, stuff like that. And but I understand it. You know, guys still have jobs, so they can't make it to practice. And it's all understandable. So it makes it challenging at times when all your players aren't there for practice, but ultimately, you know, we still get it done, you know, understanding it and, you know, still moving with it. We still make it happen.
So when you travel around the world, and then which country impressed you the most? I mean, in terms of the basketball development?
I would say China at the moment still. Yeah, China's, you know, they're up there. You know, China, you know, basketball is pretty popular there, as we know. So I would say China has the best. They're a little bit more further ahead right now. I think we all know that.
So, and given your unique perspective, what are your impressions of the Malaysian basketball scene? I mean, are there any emerging talents or developments that you find particularly exciting? Because you were coaching in this under-23 development league, right? You have seen a lot of players for these past few weeks or past month.
Yeah, it's a lot of guys. You know, it's a lot of players I've seen. You know, we did the international tournament out in Taiwan.
Yep.
The 25 and under Malaysian team, you know, national team. Quite a few talented guys, you know, Ja, of course, Fu, you know, and Fu was good. You know, Sharwin, he's going to be pretty good, as long as he continues to work. But I'm not about to give out no props to no other teams right now because we got to play still, all right? You know what I'm saying? Catch me when the season over. But there's a lot of good guys, man. There's some good guys down there with the 17 and under, and they have some great talent. You know, young Dylan. So it's good. You know, May, Yi Hao, those guys are great.
Mm-hmm. But in your squad right now in Matrix, who is the best guys, like, in your opinion?
On the senior team?
Yep. No, I mean in your team. Yep. In Matrix team at the moment.
I would have to say Yi Hao and May.
Okay. I mean in the development league.
Oh, D League.
Your D-League team.
Ja is our best player so far right now. But Fu's been, you know, he's been, suffering some injuries.
Yep.
I would say Ja is our best player on our team.
All right, cool. Yeah, he was the MVP, final MVP last year, and finally, as someone with a wealth of experience in both basketball and music. So what advice or words of wisdom would you like to offer to aspiring basketball players in Malaysia, like who may want to follow your footsteps?
I would say live in that gym, study the game. You know, watching highlights is amazing, but I always preach, you know, break down the game, look at their footwork, look at their form, work on the fundamentals. So many videos out here that's teaching dribble, step back, but we need to get back to learning, focusing on the fundamentals, and that's the jump stops, that's the triple threats, that's to, you know, pass fakes, you know, ball handling, you know, short jump shots. Then we move it out to the three. You know, it's a gradual thing. You know, you got to build a foundation with basketball. You know, you just can't jump out there and start shooting threes from half court just because you see Stephen Curry do it. Stephen Curry, he started inside out, continued to work on his game and develop. It's not an overnight thing, so you have to put the work in. You want to be great, you know, you got to put in extra work. You know, I said it in one of my videos. You know, sometimes you might have to wake up before school and get some ball handling, get some shots in, you know, and get some weightlifting in. You know, you got to go the extra mile. It's not going to happen by you just not putting in extra work. Like I said earlier, you have guys like Dirk Nowitzki getting shots up after our game, after playing 40 minutes, 42 to 46 minutes a game. He's still putting in work afterwards. So I feel like that's something that's going to make a difference between a decent player, a good player, and a great player.
We need more, like, you know, skills development coach in Malaysia. I'm not sure what's your take on that, because I think we know fundamental is very important, but the problem is, like, we don't have enough good coaches, like, to teach the players on the fundamentals.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm here, man. I'm here to help in those areas. So I feel like this will be you know, whenever I have the chance, opportunities to work with more and more people, more and more youth, it'll come. And right now, you know, I'm using those type of ordeals with my team. So I feel like, you know, we could use more. So, you know, it's gonna start with me, man. We will go from there.
Cool. That's cool. I like that. So is there any like special thing you would like to share with us to the Malaysian audience?
Man, just continue to support the movement, man. Follow me on Instagram. You know, I'm doing updates, and, you know, certain things, what I'm be working on and stuff like that. So just continue to support. You know, if young players, if you have any questions about anything about the game, feel free to DM me. You know, I'll give you the best advice I can, you know, based on your questions. So I'm open to that. You know, I'm always helping guys, helping young players, helping current players. So just send me a DM. You know, ask me whatever question you want. I'll see if I can help.
All right. Cool. Thank you, Coach. Thank you for coming to the show tonight. Appreciate, and all the best to you in the D-League.
All right, man, I appreciate it, Jordan. Good luck, right?
All right, that's it for this episode. Thank you for watching or listening. You can leave a comment down below and ask any questions or any insights or any thoughts about this episode. That would be awesome. And if you enjoyed this episode, you might like to check this episode as well. So thank you for watching again. Do hit the like and subscribe button if you aren't already. I'll see you next time. Have a great day. Bye.